You guys will never find happiness. Her face flashes through my mind as she said this with a laugh. That won't happen. I'm determined to find happiness with Mike and our baby on the way. Thinking this, I desperately gave birth to our child. Sorry. I'm late. 5 hours after giving birth. Just seeing him rush in, looking flustered, somehow made me feel relieved. Thank you for coming. This is our daughter, I said, showing our child to Mike. I was expecting him to be overjoyed. However, his reaction was far from what I expected. What? No way. Mike? Contrary to my expectations, Mike started to tremble. Why did this happen? What's wrong? Did something happen? Mike muttered. I was just confused by his reaction. Then, I realized he wasn't looking at me or our daughter. Mike, what do you see? Mike has a sixth sense, and it was showing him something. As I asked this, actually. Mike begins to explain, with a heavy heart. The words he uttered left me in shock. I'm Julia Carter. I'm a 26-year-old engineer and a working mom. I'm the youngest child born and raised locally, spoiled by those around me. Of course, I was also properly scolded when I did something wrong, and I believe I grew up to be a typical, ordinary woman. Julia was always so easygoing and never caused any trouble. My mom often said that about me. Apparently, I've always been smiling since I was little, managing my mood on my own. While my brothers were quite a handful, I was easy to take care of, which was a relief for her. I didn't think much of it at first, but then, around the time I became an adult. You're the new hire, right? Would you like to chat for a bit? That's how I met Mike, who would become my husband, and came to understand the truth. You might not believe this easily, but I actually have a sixth sense. According to him, my ancestors were always smiling and watching over me. That's why he thought I must be a wonderful person loved by my ancestors and decided to approach me. Honestly, I never believed in spirits. But I couldn't sense any deceit in his serious expression. Maybe, those ancestors were the ones keeping me in good spirits when I was little. He laughed and said, "You have great ancestors," when I shared the stories my mom told me. As we talked more, we quickly became close. If Julia doesn't mind, would you like to go out with me? Eventually, he confessed, and we started dating. His strong sixth sense was real, as he would sometimes get scared looking at nothing, but when I'm with you, Julia, I feel safe because no evil spirits come near. According to Mike, the ancestors watching over me protect us, so no evil spirits can approach. Thanks to that, he could spend peaceful moments together while he was with me. I also feel happy when I'm with Mike. Then, why don't we get married? And so, we decided to marry. My parents liked him too, and we were having a peaceful married life. Life is happy now, but it was challenging before we got married. Dad is fine, but my sister is troublesome. According to him, his elderly sister Michelle was a difficult person. His father always took Mike's side and listened to him seriously. However, his sister, doted on by their mother, was different. She always wanted to be the number one and believed her opinions were always right. I never really got along with my sister, it was like I left home because of her. His sister didn't believe in anything related to spirits and always called Mike a liar, denying his experiences. As a result, they were like oil and water. And Mom always spoiled her. His late mother doted on his sister. She never scolded her, only pampered her. Raised by such a mother, his sister developed a selfish personality, and even their father struggled with her. Above all, my sister looks down on me. She might say something terrible to you, Julia. It's okay. Whatever she says, I won't mind. I reassured Mike, though I was a bit worried. I had never had someone like that in my life. Sure, there were people who spoke ill of others, but I kept my distance from such people. However, this time, running away wasn't an option since she would be family. Honestly, my sister and I aren't close, and you don't have to force yourself to get along with her. Mike said, seemingly understanding my feelings, and kindly reassured me. His words and smile made me feel at ease. I was with such a kind person. Everything would surely be all right, I thought at that time. Then came the day we went to announce our marriage. Nervously, I visited his family home. You seem like a kind young woman. Please take good care of Mike. My father-in-law was a gentle-looking man, and he warmly welcomed me. Feeling relieved by his kindness, similar to Mike's, suddenly, ew, why is Mike here? A woman appeared in front of us. As soon as she saw her, Mike's smiling face turned to disgust. Why are you here? You weren't supposed to be here today. That's none of your business. Watching their exchange, I realized she was the infamous sister. Weren't you going shopping? Realized I was out of cash. Dad, can I have some money? Considering she's Mike's elderly sister, she must have been well into adulthood. Despite that, she was asking her father for money. While inwardly taken aback by her behavior, her gaze turned to me. And who are you? She's my fiancée. What? You're getting married? She looked utterly shocked, and I hurriedly introduced myself. Upon scrutinizing my face, his sister scoffed and laughed, kind of dowdy, aren't you? Mike really has bad taste. I was taken aback by such a reaction and froze. You're unbelievably rude. Julia, let's go home. Mike pulled my arm as I was still in shock. As his sister laughed mockingly, calling it a runaway, and got scolded by their father, we left his family home. I'm really sorry about my sister. Mike apologized profusely once we got back to our place. Don't worry about it. It just caught me by surprise. Upon saying that to him, he seemed relieved, visibly relaxing. But his expression bore signs of weariness. What's wrong, Mike? Actually, according to Mike, his late mother was standing behind his sister. She was constantly saying, "My cute Michelle and useless son." I realized that might have soured his mood suddenly. That must have been tough. Why don't you take it easy today? Thanks, Julia. He said so, and went to the bedroom. Watching his tired back, I thought about how hard it must have been for him. It's unbelievable to favor one child over another. I couldn't believe Mike's story when I first heard it. My parents loved me, the youngest, and my siblings equally. I never felt any favoritism. So, the idea that some people treat their children differently based on being a son or a daughter was foreign to me. But I guess it means I just have to give Mike all the love his mother didn't. I murmured, deciding to love him even more. Sometime after we had made our marriage announcement. Having visited each other's families, we were now busy preparing for our wedding. Of course, we couldn't neglect our jobs. So, I remained busy at work as well. Huh? You? What? On my way to the meeting room, I was stopped by someone calling out to me. It was her, Mike's sister. I never imagined she'd be working at the same company, and I froze yet again. Seeing my reaction, she smirked. So, you work here too? Thank you for the other day. Despite the meeting time approaching, I couldn't just walk away without offering a greeting. It was when I tried to leave after exchanging the bare minimum of greetings. Really, it was such a waste of time. And to think you're a client. I couldn't help but internally panic at her words. It seems she's involved with the client we were meeting. Good to know. I'll be seeing you around. Yes, please take care of me. Somehow managing to respond in the moment, we headed to the meeting room while listening to her boast about how great she was. But her demeanor would change drastically during the meeting. I'm looking forward to working with you, Julia. I've heard a lot about you. I'm glad we can work together. Both my boss and her boss, who accompanied her, expressed their expectations of me. Normally, I'd respond with full enthusiasm, but her glaring at me with a "despite being so dowdy" attitude made it hard to be genuinely happy. Then, her boss sighed deeply. You should try to learn from her. Right after that, I felt a chill from the look she gave me. It was the look filled with obvious displeasure and hostility. Faced with such a gaze for the first time, I was left speechless. Is something the matter? No, nothing at all. I replied to the director, looking back at Mike's sister. She was no longer looking at me. However, I couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. What? My sister's at the company? I immediately talked to Mike about it. He seemed just as surprised that his sister was involved with a client. Seeing his worried expression made me realize he was concerned for me. Are you okay? I mean, how are you feeling? I was feeling a chill until just now, but I'm fine now. According to Mike, his late mother, who is attached to his sister, seemed to have targeted me as an enemy. However, my ancestors apparently intervened. Julia, we should talk to our boss. Honestly, I don't know what my sister might do next. Nodding at his suggestion, we consulted our boss about his sister. We avoided mentioning the supernatural aspects Mike saw, focusing instead on the fact that she was about to become family, and that Mike and she were estranged. So that's the situation. Julia is crucial for our current project with this client. We'll discuss it with them. The app one developed was central to this deal. So, my participation in this project is absolutely essential. On the other hand, it seemed his sister had forced her way into coming along with her boss. I'll make sure we succeed. She had claimed so, but her attitude was frankly embarrassing. Thus, our boss had already been considering sidelining her from the project. As a result, she was removed from this work, deepening the rift between us. I will never forgive you. Furious over this incident, she attempted to confront us. Enough already! Not only did her father reprimand her, but she was finally kicked out of their home. Thus, having to hastily find a new place, she didn't have the bandwidth to bother us anymore. You guys getting married? I'll never congratulate you. And you'll never find happiness. However, Mike's sister wasn't the type to back down. Right before she was ousted from the family home, she laughed and said those words. I couldn't help but feel a bad premonition about her. Don't worry about my sister. I'll make you happy. And then, we got married. Contrary to her words, we've been living happily after our marriage. Then, something happened. Congratulations. I was pregnant. Reporting the news to Mike, my parents, and my Fael brought everyone immense joy. I was over the moon too, but it was quite the challenge. With severe morning sickness and the baby being breech, there were various difficulties. Normally, Mike would be my rock through such times. I'm really sorry. Don't worry about it. You're working hard enough for both of us. He's been busy filling the gap left by my absence. Because of this, it became difficult to rely on him as much as I needed to. Ideally, I would have liked to rely on my parents, but living in the countryside meant we couldn't see each other easily. It couldn't be, could it? The words of Mike's sister flashed through my mind. Had she cursed me? No, that's impossible. While I've come to understand spiritual matters through Mike, I couldn't quite believe in curses. Even if there were a curse, I wouldn't let it defeat me. I murmured, stroking my belly as if making a vow. Perhaps thanks to this declaration, my child continued to grow healthily. And finally, the day arrived. Mom, you can do it! The birth was exceedingly difficult. My child wouldn't come out no matter how many hours passed. I gritted my teeth, fighting to stay conscious. You guys will never find happiness. Her face flashes through my mind as she said this with a laugh. That won't happen. I'm determined to find happiness with Mike and our baby on the way. Thinking this, I desperately gave birth to our child. Sorry. I'm late. 5 hours after giving birth. Just seeing him rush in, looking flustered, somehow made me feel relieved. Thank you for coming. This is our daughter. I said, showing our child to Mike. I was expecting him to be overjoyed. However, his reaction was far from what I expected. What? No way. Mike? Contrary to my expectations, Mike started to tremble. Why did this happen?
What's wrong? Did something happen?
Mike muttered. I was just confused by his reaction. Then, I realized he wasn't looking at me or our daughter. Mike, what do you see? Mike has a sixth sense, and it was showing him something. As I asked this, actually. Mike begins to explain, with a heavy heart. The words he uttered left me in shock. Actually, just until a moment ago, my mom was here. Apparently, his late mother tried to possess our newly born daughter. During that moment, she was saying, I don't need the child of someone who torments my dear Michelle. Despite his efforts to stop it, Mike lacks the ability to exorcise spirits. Therefore, he could do nothing but tremble in fear, unable to take any action. Then, Dad showed up. Upon hearing that, I couldn't help but be surprised. By Dad, he undoubtedly meant my father-in-law. But he was still very much alive. So, it didn't make sense for Dad to appear. It seemed that my father-in-law vanished along with his wife. That led Mike to mutter, why did this happen? We might not know the truth, but let's celebrate our daughter's birth. Mike said so, gazing at our daughter. His face was filled with tender love. His expression radiated pure joy at her arrival, making me smile too. The next day.
Mike! What happened?
His face was pale when he visited the hospital room. He was drastically different from the day before, prompting me to ask in panic. Dad was in a traffic accident yesterday. What? That kind father-in-law? He had been eagerly waiting to hold his granddaughter. Was he in an accident? How bad are his injuries? I asked, to which he shook his head. He didn't make it. At those words, my mind went completely blank. According to Mike, my Fael was a hit-and-run victim, found by a passerby already deceased. Moreover, this happened right before our daughter was born, while I was in labor. So, it really was Dad who helped us then. It might have been. I considered how kind my Fael was. He must have been concerned for me, surely watching over us. Just then, Mike's mother appeared, attempting to harm our daughter. Your father protected us, I said, and Mike nodded, close to tears. The pain he was feeling must have been far greater than I could imagine. Dad protected us. Now, it's my turn to protect you both. He said so, embracing me and our daughter. He seemed to have made a decision, his gaze fixed above me. Perhaps he was seeing something invisible to me again. Mike? Your ancestors are teaching me a lot. It's time to finally settle things with my sister. It took me months to understand why he mentioned his sister. After that conversation, we encountered no major issues, and I safely returned home. Welcome back, Julia and Mila. Mike warmly welcomed us. Mila is our daughter's name. It is a blend of Mike's name and a character from mine. Our cherished daughter, precious to us both. If there was anything trying to harm her, we were ready to face it head-on. As we watched Mila sleep peacefully, we were determined. Shall we go? Yes, let's go. We left Mila with my parents for a short while as we visited a certain place. Huh? Why are you two here? We had arrived at the company where his sister worked. We had gotten permission in advance from a client and arranged to use a meeting room for a discussion. What do you want? Our child was born recently. His sister, already looking displeased at our presence, scowled even more. Damn, did I fail? What's that to me? You were trying to harm our daughter as revenge on us, right? Mike responded coldly, causing his sister to shudder. It likely hit the mark. Her pride was immense, needing to be the best, and she couldn't stand not being number one. And it was hurt by me, so in retaliation, she schemed to harm Mila, something precious to me. Misunderstanding that she was wronged, she tried to take Mila from Julia. But Dad stopped her. Even after expelling his sister, he had been watching, concerned she might cause further trouble. And upon realizing that she was planning to harm me or Mila, he intervened and tried to persuade her otherwise. Thinking of Dad as an obstacle, you ran him over, probably hoping to inherit something in the process. Mike's words made his sister visibly shake. On the day of the accident, the father-in-law, aware of his daughter's actions, had waited for her outside the company to talk. He reportedly told her, "Stop meddling with Mike and Julia's life. Quit your foolish antics." Enraged by this, his sister hit their father with her car on his way home. "You know I have a sixth sense, right? Dad's been telling me a lot." Having heard from his father, Mike realized they couldn't let his sister's crime go unnoticed. "While I was in the hospital, he started investigating. It was tough to find proof, but I finally got it on a dashcam." "What do you mean got it?" "It shows Dad walking and your car speeding towards him." Despite the police not having found this evidence, Mike's persistence paid off. He showed his sister a copy of that evidence. Upon seeing it, she looked down and lamented, "Ah, this is the worst. Why do you and Dad always have to get in my way?" She murmured that. Then, she gave us an annoyed look. "It's always been like this. Mom always listened to me, but you two just get in the way." Of course, we would. Not to be outdone by his sister's glare, Mike began to share the feelings he had harbored for a long time. "You took Mom's words, 'The world is yours,' too literally and always did whatever you wanted. As a child, it was normal for her to take toys from others. As a student, she caused trouble by getting involved with people's boyfriends. Her father was always the one cleaning up after her. Because of you, I was always the selfish girl's brother. And even though I only told family about my sixth sense, you spread rumors that I was a liar. You've been a nuisance all along. The troublemaker has always been you. But unlike you, my only ally was Mom. You brought it upon yourself. Nobody wants to be close to someone selfish. Especially not with someone who causes trouble for others. Even then, Dad tried to take responsibility for you until the end. He's not here anymore. It's time you took responsibility for yourself," Mike declared, staring at his sister. Glared back at Mike with a little afraid, she retorted, "What? What's the big deal? If Dad hadn't intervened in the first place. He only did what any father would. By the way, where were you during Dad's funeral?" "I was in the hospital during the funeral. We managed to pay our respects later, but his sister hadn't shown her face at all." "That's none of your business." "Right. It's no longer my concern." Surprised by his words, his sister looked shocked. "You're no longer my sister."
How could you say that?
Ignoring his sister, Mike made his declaration. Later, his sister was arrested for their father's case. Resisting arrest during that incident might also lead to charges of obstructing the execution of public duties. "This is where we completely cut ties with my sister," Mike said, "and we decided to sever our connection with Michelle." "Are you sure? She's your only family." "My family consists of my dad, Julia, and Mila." He said so with a smile. Surely, Mike wasn't alone. However, there were other things that concerned me as well. Could Michelle target us again? Don't worry, she can't do anything by herself. Until now, her parents, despite their different approaches, had been protecting her. Her mother had devotedly taken care of Michelle's needs, ensuring everything would be all right even in her absence. Her father, although angry with Michelle's actions, couldn't bring himself to abandon her and had always looked after her. Losing both parents meant that she was struggling just to live on her own. So, keeping physical distance should be enough. Michelle was fired due to this incident. It seemed her performance at work was also poorly regarded. Our investigation revealed she was taking credit for subordinates' work and had an insulting attitude. As a result, she was fired without anyone defending her. After that, we decided to relocate. The app one developed was a huge success, leading to the establishment of a new branch. I will become the head of that branch, with Mike serving as my assistant, set to start after my maternity leave. It's unexpected that our relocation would be near my hometown. This means we could easily rely on my family. I'm looking forward to raising Mila together with everyone. I'm looking forward to it too. Mike, saying this, had a look of relief on his face. Perhaps being freed from Michelle brought a change in his emotions. By the way, what were my ancestors doing? They were there to protect Julia, and Dad was there too. Even his mother couldn't surpass his father. Thanks to him, Mila was safely born. Michelle's actions towards her father might have been influenced by this, though. I can't thank your father enough. Recently, the will of my father-in-law was discovered. Perhaps he sensed something. The will stated that Michelle would not inherit anything. Instead, his assets were to be used for Mila's future. It was written just like that. Now it's our turn to protect Mila. Yes, indeed. Surely, my father-in-law is watching over her growth. To ease his spirit, we will protect her with our own hands. We promised like that. Later, Michelle received a prison sentence. She made the news as the terrible daughter who committed a hit-and-run on her father. Now, she has nowhere to belong. Even after her release, recognized everywhere, she'll have no place to go. And the family home is being sold. Since everyone has promised they won't disclose our whereabouts, we can focus on parenting without worries. While watching the news, I heard Mila crying. Hearing it, I went to her with a smile. Did you see the news, Julia? Yes, I saw it. Mike returned home and talked to me while holding Mila. A letter from her came to the company. Really? Yeah. They thought it'd be good for us to know and sent it over. The letter apparently contained messages of remorse and pleas for help. Mike read it but then tore it up and threw it away. After all the trouble and harm she's caused, it's absurd to expect help. I nodded in agreement. Years later. Mila, growing up healthily, brings joy to our lives as Mike and I balance work and family. Mommy, you know what? What is it, Mila? Grandpa says thank you. I was puzzled. Mila calls my father, her grandfather, Grandpa. The pronunciation felt a bit different, and I wondered if my father would specifically ask to pass a message like that. Where's Grandpa, Mila? When I asked her that, Mila pointed to an empty space with a determined yes. I remembered what my mother and Mike once said. Just like your mom, Mila. Just as I was said to have been favored by our ancestors. Similarly, it seems that my father-in-law is watching over Mila. Thank you, truly. Mommy?
Let's have some snacks, shall we?
Mila responded to my words with a smile. Seeing her like that brought me comfort once again. So, Dad's still watching over us, huh? I mentioned this to Mike as soon as he got back, and he mused deeply before responding. Maybe we should all go visit him soon. I smiled and nodded at his suggestion. And Mila cheerfully agreed with a yes. Then, on a long weekend a few days later, we visited the land where his parents' house once stood. Wow! Suddenly, Mike's gaze was drawn in a certain direction. Following his gaze, I saw a disheveled woman wandering aimlessly. Seeing her familiar figure, I couldn't help but wonder if it was her. Could that be Michelle? Probably. Mike responded to me, looking away from her. It seemed he had lost interest quickly. He lifted Mila into a cheerful embrace. I cast one more glance at the woman and followed Mike. Afterward, a former colleague confirmed it indeed was Michelle. She's barely getting by, juggling part-time jobs. She must be struggling significantly. She looked much older than her actual age, which made me feel a pang of sympathy. Mike would probably say she deserves no pity. Curse others, and you dig two graves. Maybe she's now facing the consequences of her actions. Her misfortune is likely to continue. It's because that's probably her comeuppance. Some time later, I learned from the ex-colleague that she had been arrested for theft. I should forget about her. I'll forget about Michelle and focus on finding happiness with my own family. I'm sure my father-in-law would have wanted to. Now, to get back to work. I have lots to do as the new branch manager. Even with Mike's help as my assistant, I know I have to give it my all. Also, I want to create a new app. What I'm envisioning is a game that even small children can play. Mila and I might have less time together from now on. Yet, if she could enjoy an app one made, we'd still share a connection. I thought so. That's a great idea. Let me help, it'll be a gift for Mila. He said this with a smile, appearing completely over the past. Inspired by his resolve, I decided to work hard too. Eventually, the app we created became popular worldwide.
I love this game.
Mila exclaimed with a broad smile. And we were truly happy. Our efforts were recognized, and we achieved further success. Maybe cutting ties helped. Everything's going well. It's the result of our hard work. Indeed. We're ready to walk this path of happiness together. Several more years later. As a branch manager, I'm busy with the day-to-day hustle. Mommy, Grandpa says not to overdo it. Oops, sorry. She's still seen to see her grandfather. That might be something she has in common with Mike. But, he never appears in front of me, Mike added. Mike had seen his father only once when Mila was born. Maybe he's just shy. Maybe. After his mother passed and appeared as a spirit, Mike was quite frightened. His father speculated that knowing his fear, perhaps that's why he doesn't appear before him. I wish I could meet him too. As I murmured that, a breeze passed between us. It seemed to affirm his unseen presence.
Dad. Mom. Hurry up.
Okay. Mila called us with a beaming smile, and we responded with joy. Mila's quite the tomboy. For now, I'm soaking up your love. I'll be a big sister soon. At those words, we looked at each other. Later, during a visit to the hospital, we discovered I was pregnant with our second child. We promised anew to embrace this new life into our happiness together.